I'll introduce you to Minister Simon Harris.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ivan, and good morning, everybody. And it's great to be here, and I'm sure it's great that you're back in person. I'm conscious this is I think your first in-person annual conference in quite a few years. So thank you very much for inviting me to formally open the Construction Industry Federation Annual Conference in the landmark, iconic Crow Park. As someone who's from Wicklow, sadly, I get invited to conferences here more often than I do days out. And as Garth Brooks was here a couple of weeks ago, I didn't think it'd be a good idea for a politician to turn up in a cowboy hat. I missed that occasion as well, but I do very much welcome the chance to be here with you today. I've already had a very good meeting, President, with some of your education team. I want to thank Dermot, the Director of Safety and Training. I want to thank John, the Chair of CIF Education, and Joanne, the Vice Chair, for the meeting we had this morning. And I'll touch on some of the issues that we discussed during the course of these few remarks. But I am really pleased to be here because perhaps this is the first opportunity we have to formally introduce what is still a relatively new government department to the construction industry and to CIF. So we now have in this country a department dedicated to tertiary education. We have a department dedicated to skills provision. We have a department that is dedicated to and mandated to work with industry, work with you to make sure we can meet the labour force needs of our country now and into the future. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that ever would have happened or could have happened if we had just kept the model of the old model of the Department of Education, where these issues, important as they are, would be competing with other important issues like primary school pupil-teacher ratios. So actually, by creating a new standalone department that fuses functions that used to be in a Department of Business with functions that used to be in a Department of Education, to say, what does our country look like now and into the future? What skills do we need, and how do we prepare to make sure every person in this country can reach their full potential and can play their part in that? So my first message today to the CIF is that my department is open for business, open for dialogue, wants to work with you, wants to work in partnership with you to make sure that we have an education system in all its facets that is delivering for the needs of our society and delivering for the needs of our economy. Anybody who follows in any way my own work or the work of my department will know that we're extraordinarily passionate about the issue of apprenticeships. This has been a key priority for me since I took up this post about 2 years ago, and we're genuinely working extraordinarily hard to try and change the narrative around apprenticeships, particularly among school leavers. I have personally been in more than 60 secondary schools across Ireland over the course of the last 12 months, talking to fifth-year students, talking to sixth-year students, talking to 16 and 17-year-olds about the fact that the apprenticeship is a really, really good route to go, to get a qualification, to get a good, decent job with well paid, and also to do something that you could find very enjoyable as well. And what we're really trying to do, and the reason I'm investing so much time in this, is we're trying to change what I think has become a very snobby attitude in this country to education. We have created a very narrow conversation where when you walk into a school now, nearly the first conversation a young person is having, or the first question they're being asked is, tell me the name of the university you're going to attend, not tell me what you're passionate about, not tell me what makes it easier to get out of bed on a rainy Monday morning. And that needs to change. In my view, the CAO system has strangled that conversation, the conversation about diversity of pathways, and that there are so many ways to succeed in life. Going directly to university is one for many, further education and training, apprenticeships, traineeships, and we really need to broaden this conversation. And we need to do it for two reasons. We need to do it for the mental health and well-being of our young people. It's quite frankly not normal that so much pressure is levelled on young people throughout the world. This obsession with the points race, the points. That's not normal, and we need to change that. So for the well-being and the mental health of young people. But the second reason, and perhaps the more selfish reason we need to change it, is we need these young people to go and work in sectors like your own if we're to address the big challenges that our country faces. I mean, if Talk built houses, and if Talk and Dáil Éireann built houses, we'd have an oversupply of houses in this country. We'd be tripping over them. But it doesn't. And as I often say when I go into schools, I can talk about building houses in the Dáil where I work. Everybody can talk about it. Nobody in Dáil Éireann's going to build one house. Since Mick Wallace went off to Brussels, I don't think there's a builder in the Dáil, right? So we actually need the next generation to step up and see the potential in working in your sector and the potential of the apprenticeship route to take them there. And we've looked at this in depth, and you looked at it in depth, and you know it. You know it in your industry. You know it no matter what part of the country you're at. We have a serious shortage of people working in construction. And we have very, very ambitious and very, very important targets in relation to both housing and in relation to climate. And we're not going to be able to reach them unless we work together to make sure that we have the labour force that we need. Because we've done a very in-depth analysis of this, and we believe in my department that we're going to need 50,000 more people to work in the construction sector by 2030 if we're to meet the Housing for All targets and the climate targets. That's a lot of people. It's doable, but it's not doable if we just continue with business as normal. We're going to have to change things. And whether you're a bricklayer, a plumber, a carpenter, an architect, an engineer, we now need the next generation to consider a future in this field. And I'll return to that later on. But just beyond the talk, beyond the aspiration, beyond the vision, we are taking a number of very important, I was going to say concrete actions, so that's not a good week to say that. We're taking a number of very serious actions to try and bring about change, and change for your sector and change for the good of our country. The first thing I want to announce this morning, and I was when I came into your president's speech there, I heard him rightly talking about the issue of safety. And I mean, the most important obligation any of you have as employers is the safety and well-being of your workers, of your labour force. You know that. It's an obligation you take extremely seriously. And today I'm announcing that government has now approved the introduction of the Construction Safety Licensing Bill. And today I'll publish the general scheme of this legislation. And this is a new law, a draft law, that is designed to enhance the overall skills and knowledge for all those employed within the construction sector, as well as continuing to improve on and build on the safety standards. These new arrangements are critical for the safe operation of the construction and quarrying sector, and they'll provide a sound legal basis for safety, for training, and for licensing. It's absolutely crucial that we place our construction workers, and most importantly, their safety at work, at the heart of the industry. This is what the bill's about, and I really want to acknowledge and thank CIF for your work on this piece of legislation, and we'll continue to engage with you on that. Secondly, I want to just confirm this morning that we're going to take a further step by moving SafePass out of the dark ages and online next month. I think this is really important that we actually do this. We need to ensure that the process is as smooth as possible for operators, and we need to catch up with the 21st century here. So from next month, we'll see SafePass move online. And thirdly, very shortly, we're going to publish a joint higher education and further education response to how we meet our housing and climate targets by providing the required training places, the college places, the apprenticeship places, and indeed incentives that may be required to try and create more demand in these areas. So they're just three things I wanted to mention to you this morning. One fundamental change that I alluded to a moment ago that we've taken is now to try and bring apprenticeships out of the shadows. You nearly had to go out of your way as a young person to find out information about an apprenticeship. And when I meet young apprentices across the country and I say to them, how did you get involved? Not always, but generally, it's through a family link. So someone in the family was already working in the industry, therefore you knew about an apprenticeship. There wasn't many of them putting up their hands and saying, I got involved because I had to talk about apprenticeships in school. Or I got involved because I learned about it on the CAO website because it was never there. So we've now made a change for the first time. When you go to the CAO website, when a young person logs on to cao.ie/options, they see their university options, but crucially, right alongside it now, parity of esteem, they see further education and training options, and they see their apprenticeship options. A young person doing their Leaving Cert this year, when they log on to that website, will be able to find out all about apprenticeships, will be able to interact with a dedicated helpline, a guidance counselling helpline that we've set up for students, for parents, for teachers, specifically around apprenticeships. And I think this is really important as we try and change the conversation around the kitchen table when mums and dads of Ireland are talking to their kids about their careers. And I think it's very encouraging so far. Since we've made these changes, we've seen a very, very large increase in visits to apprenticeship.ie, over 37,500 visits as of September this year. So there clearly is a phenomenal number of people interested in the apprenticeship journey. But I think there's many people who are sitting in our schools today who think if they don't put down to go to the university, they haven't reached a kind of distorted view of what success is, and we need to change it. And that's what I want to do. I need your help in relation to this, though. It has to be a partnership approach. We need people to be able to see success in the construction industry. We need CIF to continue to do what you're doing, going into the schools, showing people role models, explaining what a construction career actually means. Because again, people can have a very outdated view as to how the industry works as well. And we need to look at what is successful retention in the construction industry. What does a job in construction look like today for a young person who wants to continue to put their roots down in this country, build their family and age well into their jobs? And crucially, and this is a challenge we have to collectively accept, we need to attract an awful lot more women into this industry. We have an apprenticeship population in construction of 15,942 in Ireland. 160 of them are female. It's an extremely small number. It is a very small number, but a very significant improvement actually on even smaller numbers in recent years. We've a lot more to do. We cannot allow this sector to become a job for the boys. And I really would encourage all of us, and we will work together on this to see how we can continue to improve diversity in terms of the construction industry. And we'll do more than that. We'll do more than just work with you on it. If you take on a female apprentice, we'll give you an additional €2,666 to help you through a bursary as well. And this is a key recommendation of our apprenticeship action plan, which is the next thing that I want to talk to you about. We see the apprenticeship system as a key resource. We see it as one we need to use well to address the skills shortages in this country, particularly in relation to the construction sector. We have an action plan for apprenticeships. This is going to help our current system to adapt and to transform. And in the past 15 years, we've obviously had a financial crash and we've had a COVID-19 pandemic. These have both impacted the sector in massive, massive ways. But I'm delighted to say that we're now seeing a sector responding and a sector bouncing back. There was a very significant waiting list for off-the-job training as a result of the COVID pandemic, where people couldn't go out to these training positions. But to date, we now have over 70% of those who were delayed in their training have now progressed to that stage. So where the COVID backlog, if I may call it that, is beginning to disappear, and we will eradicate that in the months ahead. In addition to that, conscious that there's final year apprentices that you need and that the country needs out building homes, we've now fast-tracked 700 final year apprentices to complete their qualification. This year, we've also established a new National Apprenticeship Alliance. I'm delighted that CIF has a seat at that table, and we've established a National Apprenticeship Office to better coordinate apprenticeships in Ireland. Both of these will be crucial in the transition to a single apprenticeship model under the Action Plan for Apprenticeships. Good conversation with CIF on this morning. We'll have further conversations. I think there's a bit of misinformation out there. This isn't about migrating the craft apprenticeship to consortia-led. It's about a partnership approach to build one single apprenticeship structure that works. And if it doesn't work for your industry, it's not going to work for me either. Because if it doesn't work for your industry, we're not going to have enough apprentices in this country. So we are committed to delivering a unified system that places apprentices and employers at the heart of the system. But we will work with you absolutely to make sure we get this right. This isn't a question of government imposing anything. It's about developing a partnership approach with you as well. We've also seen a lot of new apprenticeships develop during the year. We launched a wind turbine maintenance apprenticeship down in Kerry. It's a key milestone in our apprenticeship offering, but also in terms of our wider societal and environmental challenges. And I was delighted to launch the scaffolding apprenticeship during the summer when I visited the quite incredible National Construction Training Campus at Mount Lucas. Along with the very soon to be improved roofing apprenticeship, I believe we are continuing to highlight the importance of construction careers, and together we're ensuring that those interested have access and are informed. I do just want to comment a little bit though on this. In all the talk about apprenticeships, we cannot, and I must not, lose focus on the importance of traineeships. I think this is a very important area that I want to explore further with CIF. It could well be that some apprenticeship programs could become traineeship programs, that actually something that has been taken 4 years to qualify in could perhaps now take 2 years. And as we work with industry to identify new skills needs, we need to make sure that we don't just talk about apprenticeships, but that we keep the traineeship conversation up there in lights as well. All of this will only work with money. I get that. We need to put an awful lot of investment into this. Very pleased that the budget last week has delivered enough funding for 4,500 additional apprenticeship training places during the course of the year. It's also crucially provided money for what we call access apprenticeship programs. And I think this is a really important area. If you go into a community that's been disadvantaged, that hasn't perhaps had a long history of employment or of access to education, and you sign someone up for an apprenticeship, you could be setting them up for failure if you don't provide them with the supports that they require. The Access to Apprenticeship program provides people with taster programs effectively. try out a range of different apprenticeships, a range of different skills over a 10 or 12-week period, and then decide what is for you. And following on from our budget announcement, we'll now be able to roll out that programme across the country as well. We've literally been all around the country over the last few weeks announcing a significant amount of capital investment. We have a lot of work to do on capital in terms of training facilities, further education training facilities. The good news is we have money now to do it. We have 250 million to announce between now and the end of the year in terms of capital investment in further education, in training centres and in our apprenticeships as well. Briefly, have to mention the issue of retrofitting and climate, and I have to ask for your help in this regard. We need 17,000 people to work in this area if we're to meet all our retrofitting targets. We know there's a lot of talk about retrofitting. It's key for energy, it's key for the cost of the electricity, but it's key for a whole load of reasons. It's a core plank of our climate agenda in this country, but we need people to work in the area. I want you to know we will have enough capacity in Ireland to train all the people we required by next year. We'll have that capacity in place by next year. We've already opened NZEB training centres in Laois Offaly, in Waterford Wexford, in Limerick Clare, in Mayo Sligo Leitrim ETBs. We have another one to come in Cork. We have one to come in Finglas. We'll have no shortage of availability. We need to now try and create a bit of demand. And I really need the help of industry to actually explain what this is and what it's not. Going on a retrofitting training course is not signing up for months of training or years of training. This is actually a programme that can be delivered in a couple of days. There are people working in your industry today who can future-proof themselves and your company by having these green skills if you can free them up for 3 days. That's the conversation we need to be having. It's free, it's flexible in how it's provided, and it's available right across the country. And we're very serious about making sure the capacity is there. We need to work with you now to spark that demand as well. Finally, obviously at a higher education level, we have a role to play in terms of making sure we continue to increase the college places, that we continue to train more engineers, more architects. And I am pleased to say that this year we saw a significant increase in third level college places for construction-related courses. And we've also established, indeed I heard you, Frank, mention this, a construction technology centre at the University of Galway to get academics and industry working more closely together on how they can collaborate as well. So let me conclude by where I started, by thanking you for having me, by thanking you for all you do. We have a common agenda here. The biggest challenge this country faces, bar none, is the housing emergency. We also face a climate emergency. Your industry is key to delivering progress on both. The government needs progress, you need progress, the people of Ireland need progress, and we will work with you in relation to this. My door is open, my department's door is open, we're open for business, we want to take a partnership approach, and together we want to build a third level education system that works for everybody in this country, no matter who you are, where you came from, what your gender is, or what your mother or father did before you. And we want to create an education system that is agile and responsive to the needs of your industry. Thank you very much.
Director Mary Liz Trunt will be here and so on. But just specifically, and first of all, your leadership on a cultural change on career choices and apprenticeships and practical and vocational skills, I think is really welcome in the room, and you have a willing partner in CIF in that regard. But just specifically on the pre-1916 apprenticeship model and the post model, Solis estimated that the difference, this is relation to off-the-job training. The subsidy has effectively gone from 22,000 down to 8,000 is what they've estimated. And there was some cash grant last December of three grand axed. I welcome what you say about collaboration, and the solution to this is collaboration. Is there a misunderstanding here, or is there a cut?
No, there's not a misunderstanding. There was a temporary support brought in during COVID of €3,000 to help us all bounce back. And that was a temporary COVID support, and it isn't in place anymore. So that's a statement of fact. Where I think there's a misunderstanding, and I don't want to call it a misunderstanding because I think it's a need for me to be clearer rather than a misunderstanding, is about the changes that are actually going to happen here. Because in my conversation with CIF this morning, there seems to be a view that I need to rectify this morning, that we're going to basically take all our craft apprenticeships and they're going to kind of migrate to the consortium-led apprenticeships. And best of luck, off you go. There's going to be a load more responsibility on employers, and there's going to be a load more cost. That's not what's going to happen. I really want to say that. What is going to happen, let's be blunt about this, there is going to be one new single apprenticeship system in Ireland. We're not going to get there overnight. It'll take till the end of 2025 to get fully there. But as part of that, we're going to take the best of what was in the craft apprenticeship, the best of what's in the consortia apprenticeship. It's not a question of employers becoming kind of apprenticeship tutors in their part-time. It's not that question at all. There'll be a new enhanced role for the ETBs. And absolutely, we'll have to balance or bring an equalisation to the funding supports as part of that. So we will work in partnership.
It's the start of a dialogue.
It's the start of a dialogue, yeah.
Okay. And finally, you referred to Mount Lucas, the MMC, and we have a whole session dedicated to BIM, MMC and digital. And there is a lot happening with academia and so on. What is your vision for the training element of the MMC Centre in Mount Lucas?
So I want this to become the go-to place in Ireland for industry and education providers who want to learn about new and innovative ways to deliver construction. This has been, Laois Offaly ETB took a real punt in acquiring this. They took an awful lot of flack as well, by the way, at the time. Oh, white elephant and all this. They took a lot of stick. I want to say I'm really proud of what they did. I was down there with Tom, with Frank in July, I think, where it's now the home of the scaffolding apprenticeship, where they're absolutely flying through the NZEB training. But they have a campus. They have a massive campus and so much space, and in the heart of a part of the country where we know the local economy is changing as well because of just transition. So my aim is that it becomes a national demonstration park for modern methods of construction, and it becomes a go-to place. There can be hubs and spokes from it, but that this becomes the focal point, the anchor for construction skill training in Ireland.
All right, I know you've got to go to the Dáil Chamber. It's a Thursday. Please show your appreciation for the Minister and allow the President to escort him off the building. Thanks.